Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, family. Welcome, welcome to the Mental House. I am your host, Khadijah. You may hear my dog back there barking. I got some people here repairing my porches, and he is just really obnoxious. Even though he's been seeing these guys for the last week, he just wants me to know that they're here. Okay, so I know. So anyway, if you hear him barking back there, please don't let that be a distraction. Um, I want to make this video since we are the mental house, and I want to respond to Kid Cuddy, Cootie, is that what his name is? Anyway, he checked himself into a mental health facility, and because he wanted to get his mind right, and I have the utmost respect. I have the utmost. Oh my God. I'm just so proud of that young man because he said he's had, you know, thoughts of suicide and depression, and I know that a lot of uh, people, especially African Americans, right now our mental health is, it is at a question. It's at an all-time high, and in terms of how we deal with mental health, that's another story. However, I know that we still don't commit suicide at the rates of whites, and their suicide rate is higher than ours. But that's not the clan that I come from right now, and I have to speak really to African Americans because right now I know we are under stress, we are under terror, and terroristic attacks, basically. That the control group, the big narcissists, have no intention whatsoever to try to understand or have any empathy for how we feel. It would be the same thing if we were a Native American and a poor white, but unfortunately, right now we're dealing with black folk and we're talking about our mental health because unfortunately no one cares but us. And in fact, we don't care. There's a big taboo, it seems like, in our community when we start talking about mental health. I know because I was a part of that at one time. Thinking that it was just a weakness in the person. I have since changed that train and line of thought. And I'm so far away from that space that I respect Kid Cudi so much because if he has children, and this is a way to start your family and especially your children, your seeds, your pyramids, to know that your mental health is just as important as any other health. A lot of us don't even want to go to the doctor because I know we use it as experiments so much that it's very complicated. That's a complicated relationship. And I'm not here to judge one way or the other because I get it. Trust me, I get it. I know we've been used as guinea pigs, and every time we go, there's that thought process in our mind. Are we being used as a guinea pig? I'm very comfortable, and I don't mean to get all over the board, but with my doctor now, because I had a doctor before, and I could just tell that the doctor didn't like me. I could tell that he had a problem uh, with dealing with a black woman, first of all, and then what he being overweight. Uh, I think that in itself was very frustrating for him. It's frustrating for me, but even frustrating with him, and so much that I could feel it through his aura. And so I told him to get his hands off me right now, and that I was going to go to find another doctor. So right now I have a doctor, and he's from Nigeria, and I've seen him a little while, a couple weeks, and so far things have been okay. Um, and I'm just encouraging. I'm saying that to say a lot of us are apprehensive about going to doctors. Mental health issues, those are things that just in the black community are very uncomfortable. I'm hoping and trying to break that taboo. And with God's help and with God's grace, I want to be able to do that because It is a shame that we feel that way when what a man what we think is how we act. So if we're not thinking correctly and our thinking is stinking, what are we doing to our, and especially if we are parents, what are we doing to our children? So him checking himself in, I made me want to share this article, and it was a rise in suicide by black children surprises researchers. The suicide rate among black children has nearly doubled since the early 1990s, while the rate for white children has declined, a new study has found. An unusual pattern that seemed to suggest something troubling was happening among some of the nation's most vulnerable citizens. Suicide among children ages 5 to 11, the age range the study measured, is rare. The researchers had to blend several years of data to get reliable results. The finding, which measured the period from 1993 to the year 2012, were so surprising that researchers waited for an additional year of data to check them. Yet the trend did not change. Suicide rates are almost always lower among blacks than among whites of any age. But the study published in the journal JAMA Pediatrics on Monday found that the rate had risen so steeply among black children to 2.54 from 1.36 per 1 million children, that it was substantially above the rate among white children by the end of that period, or the rate white children fell to 0.77 per million from 1.14. It was the first time a national study found a higher suicide rate for blacks than whites of any age group, the researcher noted. I was shocked, to be honest with you, said Jeffrey Bridge, an epidemiologist at the Research Institute of Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I looked at it and I thought, did we do analysis correctly? I thought we had made a mistake. The researchers used national data based on death certificates that listed suicide as the underlying cause. In the study, they offered a possible explanation for the difference, including that black children are more likely to be exposed to violence and traumatic stress, and that black children are more likely to experience an early onset of puberty, which can increase the risk of depression and impulsive aggression. But it was not clear whether those characteristics had changed much over the period of the study and would account for this sharp rise. Sean Joe, a professor of social work at Washington University in St. Louis, who has studied suicide among black youth and did not take part in the new research, pointed out that suicide had long been one of the few negative health outcomes that have affected blacks less than whites. A departure from that trend happened from the mid-80s to the 90s, when rising suicide rates among black teenagers narrowed the gap with white teenagers. One hypothesis was that the rate was driven up by the easier access to guns. Another was that there had been a cultural shift in which young blacks were not as religiously observant as older blacks. Okay, in that thinking, religious faith had conferred a protective quality that had made older blacks less vulnerable to suicide. Okay, because they, they had Jesus or, God in their lives, or something higher power that they probably could rely on through those times when they were feeling a lot of vulnerability. What it means to grow up young and black has changed, said Professor Joe. Something has happened that puts black teens at risk. He added, I find the race for children even more troubling because they are almost vulnerable. You think? And I want you to know that a lot of this vulnerability is happening right in our homes. I am sick and tired of watching mothers, and specifically I can speak to mothers, verbally abusing, mentally abusing, sexually abusing, aunties abusing children. This is just not a male situation, and males may they may manifest it differently. Um, I think I hear a lot of people, saying that, oh, that was really sharp for the young boy of 9 and 8 years old to be molested by a big babysitter or by a woman. No, usually there's some psychological problems that happens. There's some aggression issues. There's some things that just may be a little awry that you may not be willing to admit when someone takes that and confuses a child that way. Suicide by hangings, on the other, on suicide by hanging roughly tripled among black boys while remaining virtually unchanged for whites. The way children were dying seemed to provide some clues, said Dr. Mortur. He pointed out that the gun deaths among white boys had gone down by about half while staying the same for black boys, signaling that gun safety education may not be reaching black communities as effectively as the white ones. But he uncovered something very significant in the data. View that overall that age group looked like it was flat. She said that traditionally lower rates for blacks had often been attributed to the strong social networks and family support, religious faith, and other cultural factors. And now we have none of those. We have no love in the community. We have a bunch of agents and people who are pretty much distractors and haters of the black community, and they're hater of themselves. So when you have this kind of propaganda, and you have people who have been engineered to hate themselves, and everywhere they look, they see themselves because they're contained in a certain area, and then you add a drug house or a liquor store on every corner, and then an ineffective church sitting up in the midst of this madness. Sometimes actually not sometimes, I can understand that this is ingredients for a powder keg bursting wide open. And that's why it is so imperative that I respect Kid Cudi, Kid Cudi, for taking this giant step and addressing his mental health. It's one of the reasons why I call this program the mental health, because I still believe that if each and every one of us as individuals begin to deal with our personal family issues first, forget about anything else. Start with self. Know thyself. Deal with your idiosyncrasies. Deal with what makes you tick. Deal with what you are still hurt about. Deal with that drama that your mama have put on you or your dad have put on you from childhood. Deal with that and stop trying to cover over it and act like it doesn't affect you, because it does. It either makes you narcissistic or it makes you codependent. And the faster we begin as black people to deal with our mental health, and white people as well, but I'm talking to black people specifically, the more we begin to deal with our mental health, the more we'll be able to see clearly some of the stuff we're doing. We'll get out the amygdala. That's one of the things. We'll stop regurgitating the same ineffective mantra for change. We would stop that, because we would see that that's just a stuck pattern that we're in. Okay? You know how when an airplane hovers over, what do they call that? They tell you to get in your holding pattern, because it's just staying there. That's where we're at when we don't address our mental health issues. Okay? So I want to encourage you to do that. I want to take all the shame and the stigma out of it, because the only shame is not dealing with it and not getting into it. All right? So with that being said, I want you to go out and make it a wonderful day. Be blessed. And I will see you next time in the mental house. All right? Okay, bye-bye.